Earth used to be a total paradise. I'm not talking about now, even though yeah, it's still pretty great. But like 65 million years ago? Man, it was the perfect place for dinosaurs. They were just chillin', living the dream. The whole planet was theirs. No humans around claiming land or starting wars over stuff. So yeah, food was everywhere, no stress, no shortage, just easy living. But something was off. You know the weird silence right before something big happens? Like the calm before the storm. Now imagine if we had a camera way out in space, just hanging out beyond Earth's atmosphere. We'd see this gigantic asteroid suddenly shift direction, like out of nowhere, and start heading straight for Earth. And it wasn't slowing down. It was coming in fast. Back on Earth, everything seemed normal. Folks were just going about their lives, not a clue in the world. No one knew that an asteroid the size of a freaking city, like 80 kilometers wide, was heading straight for us. And yeah, it was about to make a very loud entrance. This rock was huge. Like, seriously huge. It was so big that when the front of it hit the ground, the back end was still way up near the edge of the atmosphere. Yeah, that's how insane it was. This giant, hornless beast came crashing down hard right into the Gulf of Mexico. The impact was so brutal that scientists today figured out it left a massive scar under the ocean. We're talking a crater 150 kilometers wide and about 20 kilometers deep. Yeah, it literally punched a hole in the planet. This thing was one of the biggest space rocks to ever slam into Earth. And honestly, calling it a meteor doesn't even cut it. Nah, this was a full-on asteroid way too massive to be anything else. That calm, peaceful vibe the world had? It got wrecked in an instant the second that beast made contact. Massive mega tsunamis rose up in the oceans, racing towards the shores from every direction. They say those waves got as high as 1.5 kilometers. Yeah, you heard that right, 1.5 kilometers tall. Imagine a wave rising up 1.5 kilometers tall. Those giant waves smashed into land for 10 straight hours. But that was just the start of the disaster. The explosion from that impact was 100 million times stronger than the Tsar Bomba, the most powerful nuclear weapon ever made, and it's owned by the US. Forests within 1,000 kilometers of the impact suddenly burst into flames. Not even those mega tsunami waves could put out the fire. On top of that, the ground shook hard, triggering a massive, ongoing earthquake. The strongest earthquake ever recorded happened in Chile in 1960, hitting 9.5 on the Richter scale. Nothing's come close since. That quake was so powerful, even mountains far away started collapsing and dormant volcanoes began waking up. What I'm telling you about is just the first few hours after the impact, and the real massacre was just getting started. Within a 1,500 kilometer radius of the hit, finding any living creature was almost impossible. You wouldn't even see a single healthy plant. When that 80-kilometer asteroid slammed into Earth, it shattered into pieces. And the blast was so insanely powerful, those broken chunks actually flew back up straight out of the atmosphere. But they didn't just drift off into space. They shot up, hovered for a bit, and then came raining right back down toward Earth. And that's when the meteor shower began raining down all over the planet. If there were any forests still left standing, they got torched by these fiery bombs, chunks of that asteroid raining back down. As the fires spread, animals got trapped. most of the world's forests were burning. And the big animals, like the dinosaurs, yeah, most of them were wiped out within the first few weeks. There used to be a theory that all the dinosaurs died instantly. But now we know, the impact killed a lot of them right away, but some actually survived for a bit. Then the entire planet entered what's called an impact winter. Basically, it's like a nuclear winter, or a volcanic one. In simple terms, the asteroid hit, fires broke out, volcanoes erupted, and all that dust and ash went up into the sky. That stuff wrapped around the Earth, blocking out the sun completely. And when sunlight can't reach the ground, the planet gets cold, really cold. The cold wasn't just bad news for the dinosaurs, it wiped out about 76% of all life on Earth. To put it simply, any animal that weighed more than 25 kilos? Yeah, they were basically doomed. The tiny ones, the tough little survivors, they were the ones that made it through. This impact winter didn't last a few weeks, it dragged on for over a year. And for living creatures, that's a really long time to hang on. Now we've got a planet with just a handful of animals left, and only a few scattered plants. Everything else? It's like a scorched wasteland. And just when things couldn't get any worse, those clouds of smoke and ash still hanging in the atmosphere, yeah, they started to rain. And it wasn't just any rain. It was acid rain pouring down across the planet. One of the first things it did was wipe out most of the life in the oceans. A few tough ones managed to survive, like turtles, crocodiles, and sharks. But yeah, the majority didn't make it. The fact that some creatures actually survived all this? That's still a big question mark. A lot of scientists admit, given how messed up the planet was back then, it's honestly a mystery how any of them made it out alive. Eventually, the years passed. The acid rain stopped, the dark clouds finally cleared, and sunlight, after all that time, shined down on Earth again. But this wasn't the same Earth the sun once knew. The planet that used to be covered in lush forests and green life was now nothing but desert. After sunlight finally hit the scorched Earth, the first signs of life began to return. Tiny plants started growing again, ferns. Yeah, ferns were the first to make a comeback. In the years that followed, there just wasn't enough food left on land, and that led to even more extinctions. Only a small number of animals survived, mostly the ones that weighed less than 600 grams. There were a few exceptions, though, like turtles, sharks, and crocodiles, since they all lived in the water. So yeah, the more useful survivors? Most of them came from the ocean. For hundreds of thousands of years, that was the situation, only tiny animals roaming the land. But eventually, after all that time, creatures the size of a small dog started to show up. Better plants began to grow too, and some of them were real game changers. Like pecan, a type of wild walnut that still grows all over North America today. That wild nut gave animals the boost they needed, and life started bouncing back. In fact, animal diversity tripled, and some of the biggest land creatures now weighed up to 25 kilograms. But the real game changer for life on Earth came about 700,000 years after the extinction. Wild beans. These little guys started growing pretty much everywhere, and they made a huge difference. With more food and richer nutrients, animals got even bigger. These beans didn't just help life bounce back, they helped it evolve. More variety, more species, and yep, even heavier creatures. You realize that in just 700,000 years, the biggest land animals went from weighing 600 grams to around 50 kilograms? That's the time span we've been talking about, and it's left scientists seriously amazed. Because when you look at it in terms of evolution and Earth's overall timeline, 700,000 years is basically nothing. Life on land bounced back way faster than in the oceans. In the water, everything moved in slow motion. In fact, scientists say it took about 3 million years for ocean life to get back to normal. So what happened to the dinosaurs? Where did they go? There's barely any trace left of them. Except for one little group, they say birds are actually the surviving dinosaurs. Just look at them, they've got the look. Scientists think the main reason birds didn't go extinct is because they could build nests for themselves. Another reason? Humans didn't exist back then to wipe them out. Humans only evolved around 60 million years after all this went down. and slowly but surely, they took over the planet that once belonged to the animals.